Shalom, most high bless to all of you out there. Let me see who's made it already with me. Let's see. Shalom, most high bless to you, Timothy. Thanks for coming. And True Self K, thank you so much for coming. Shalom to you. And I thank you guys so much. So, guys, we're in for a treat tonight. Okay, so we have John Adolfi from the Lost World Museum. And we're going to be talking about evolution. So the thing is about evolution is that a lot of our friends and families, our kids, a lot of people are starting to convert over to evolution. And so, guys, we're going to have John Adolfi from the Lost World Museum, and it's where they explore the origin question. Now, the origin question is asking is apes, aliens, or Adam? Which one was it? Who created it? Was it the apes? Did we come from apes? Did aliens come down and create us, or was it Adam? And also, we have John. He is a self educated man looking to simplify the science behind this statement. He also covers topics such as geology, Noah's Ark, and the existence of giants, and anomalous artifacts that defy the evolutionary timeline. So, today, John has brought along several of these artifacts and fossils to discuss how fast do fossils and rock form. And apparently, it is very quick and very recently. So, let me get ready to bring John on. Just give me 1 second. Okay. All right, John, can you hear me?
I can hear you perfectly.
Okay, thank you so much for coming on again with me. And if you want to say hello to the audience and introduce yourself.
Absolutely. I want to, thank you for having me on. Welcome, everybody. My name's John Adolfi. My wife and I live in central New York, and we are real estate agents, own a small real estate agency by day. And in the afternoon and evening, this is what we do. In part, we do interviews, we do our own videos, and on several of the platforms that deal with a very crucial and important topic that every single man, woman, or child is going to eventually broach the subject and ask the question, where did we come from? And so that's where we enter into the conversation to provide resources, some ideas and thoughts. We are heavily biased towards one of the three that Neftali just said: apes, aliens, or Adam. Which one did we go through to become where we are today? Did we come from an ape-like creature 3 to 4 million years ago? Or did aliens have some kind of help in the evolutionary process of going from ape to a caveman and then assisting us out of that cave and then giving us technology that has been lost? And we see evidence of it It makes for an interesting case when we look at some of these artifacts and some of these buildings that we see done so many thousands of years ago with such huge megalithic structures that are razor thin when the blocks come together. Unbelievable. Or did we come from the age-old idea, truth, whatever you want to call it, of that we came from Adam and Eve? Do you know, in a Gallup poll, 40% of all Americans believe that we came from Adam and Eve. Still, in spite of the science that is
Wow. So we got 40%.
that believe in a young Earth and believe in an Adam and Eve.
Okay. Okay. So we're still hanging in there.
Yes, we are. So the interesting thing is that although 40% do believe, I think that that percentage is just a little bit higher when if you were to ask them, do you believe we came from Adam and Eve, or because they're saying that they believe in a worldwide flood, that the earth is 6,000 to 10,000 years old and we came from Adam and Eve. That's the 40%. I think that percentage is higher when you ask the question this way: did we come from Adam and Eve, or did we come from a monkey-like creature? Many people have no problem, even though they may say they believe that, in believing still that dinosaurs are tens of millions of years old, existed tens of millions of years ago. Our culture for the last 200 years has been, and I don't want to sound like a conspiratist, has been taken over, has been infiltrated, has been influenced. How about that? By the literature, the science, the movies, the education, the educational systems, that dinosaurs existed up until 66 million years ago, and then they all perished, and that we came from a monkey-like creature 3 to 4 million years ago, and that life started about 1 billion years ago. And this has been a very long, protracted, drawn-out, natural experience without any help from any outside forces. Nothing intelligent was involved. It may look it, but they tell the students, it looks like it's, when they look at the cell, the atheistic evolutionary professor will say, it looks like it's designed, but it's not. But just remember, it does look like it's designed, but please remember even more, it's not.
So, John, I have a question, and I want
Sure.
to make sure because I want the audience to understand. So, this whole creationism aspect is something that I'm introducing to my audience. They're not very, uh, a
Sure.
lot of people don't know too much about the 6,000 years. Everybody never would have thought to even question the millions and billions of years. Like, why would that even be something that is against the scripture, against the word of God, when we know that uh, billions and millions of years makes more sense that life has been on the earth as long as that. So if you can just give
Absolutely.
us like an update as to why uh, time does matter and how it is different from what the scripture says, as well as what so-called science is saying.
Okay, I'm going to give you my personal opinion. That's all. And on this one aspect, the actual original Earth, I'm talking about that blob of mass that was utilized when Jesus, in his pre-incarnate form, when he was instructed by the Father to come here along with the Spirit and to begin creating what was on this lifeless rock, life, that lifeless rock could have been here for, okay, I'm going to give three options. 10,000 years ago, 4.51 billion years ago, which was what evolutionary and geology say. Or I'm going to say that it was been here for a few trillion years, meaning that we don't know. Could have been even longer than 5 billion. But life on Earth, that's what we're talking about. Life on Earth and the geological record that we see. Is it 1 billion years old? Primarily 600 million years? Or is it, as the scriptures say, around 6,000 years when you piece the genealogies all together? So let's just say the earth is 1 trillion years old, and then Jesus comes down and speaks everything into existence over the course of 6 days, literal days, and then rests on the seventh day, literal day. And in that process creates the water, the air, the gravity, the bugs, and then eventually humans on the sixth day. And then and then life begins, only to be disrupted about 1600 years later during the worldwide flood. So that's the creationist perspective. What that means is that human history doesn't go back any further than 6,000 years. And that the idea that we came from monkeys, monkey-like creatures or whatever, is false. We came from very noble beings that probably had IQs much higher than us. Their genetic disposition was much purer than we have today. And they lived hundreds of years because they were originally designed to live forever. And it's dumbed down both in size, intelligence, and lifespan over the course of 6,000 years. And here we are today, a mere shell of what we were. So I hope that helps introduce this idea of creationism.
Yes, it was. That was a great opinion. It was very thorough in your explanation because, like I said, a lot of people haven't heard of this 6,000 years. They, like I said, everybody looks at the timeline, and that's the one thing that we don't think we have to defend. It's the timeline. We
Right.
always think that billions of millions of years, what could be wrong with that? But like you just explained, that according to Scripture, it's 6,000 years. The earth.
Right. And I'll tell you something. Can I just be really frank? 6,000 years, when you're looking at it conceptually, sounds like a really too short a period of time for all of this to have happened. But think about what the alternative is. The alternative is that we came from rained on rocks 3.5 billion years ago, and some kind of proto-RNA on its own, unaided, became us, became leaves, became insects, and, and here we are as a result of that. I mean, that's the alternative. Both of them, I have to say, sound absolutely Looney Tunes. And both of them can't be proved because we weren't there to observe it, at least if you're going to use the scientific method. I'm talking about the scientific method of when they say that observation and testability, we can just take fragments of things and run them through our scientific means of determining age and whatnot and coming up with a conclusion. But nobody was there for either one. So there you have it.
Yeah, so tonight we're in for a treat. Do you have a presentation or what do you have to share with us?
I've got show and tell. I hope you and
All
your
right.
audience is okay with show and tell.
We love show and tell. That's even better. So what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna give you the floor and I'm gonna let you have it and let's go.
Okay. I'll tell you what's really ironic, and that is that there's no way, if somebody told me years ago when I was in earth science class, bored out of my mind in 9th grade, that someday I'm going to want to study geology as a direct result of reading the first several chapters of the book of Genesis. If somebody had told me that, I would have said, you're absolutely nuts. Geology is boring. Well, to some, geology, even from the evolutionary standpoint, is absolutely exciting and interesting. They find minerals and rocks and everything just and fascinating, gems and things like that. Fascinating. I didn't, but now I do. In the context of this evolution creation debate, if you want to call it, geology all of a sudden takes on a really fantastic place in it all. And I'm going to show you a few things here during this program that I hope you enjoy as much as I enjoy sharing and as much as I enjoy collecting. The timeline of 4.51 billion years versus 6,000 years, that's a big difference. There are certain characteristics or certain proofs that would have to fit into that. So the assumption has always been, up until the 1980s, is that long periods of time was required for all of this, and that it was slow and steady. Here's a $3 word for you. It's called uniformitarianism. That's the name of it. That's what describes that. It means that when we see a little babbling brook and we see what kind of erosion takes place or not, or movement, the erosion takes the stream and moves it about on the land. Give it 100 years and a stream may be 100 yards away. We can use that or those types of things, erosion patterns, soil, weather, and we can make predictions based on assumption that this has gone on for 4.5 billion years, or at least in the last several hundred million years. It wasn't until the 1980s that catastrophism was introduced into the marketplace of evolution and geology. The reason why they stayed away, and catastrophism is when you have an event that is catastrophic. Could be a flood, could be asteroids, could be volcanoes, earthquakes, a tsunami. So when you have an event, a catastrophic event, the reason why they shied away from any geology being formed like that is it because it beckoned to the catastrophic worldwide flood concept. To stay as far away from that and to embrace uniformitarianism, slow, steady, is what science had done for almost 200 years. Finally, in the 1980s, they said, you know what? Dinosaurs didn't die of XYZ. They died of a huge 6-meter or 6-mile meteor hitting the Yucatan Peninsula and wiping all the dinosaurs out throughout the world. Kind of the beginning of the beginning of allowing catastrophe, but brief periods of catastrophe, localized periods of catastrophe or events, you know. So there is some catastrophe or catastrophism local on occasion in the evolutionary, way of thinking. Now, here's the thing. Here's the two questions I ask. 3, actually. And getting now, let's dig a little deep. Let's dig into geology. Forgive the pun. How old are the fossils? Are they really hundreds of millions of years old? How long does it take? How old's the rock? I'm talking about sedimentary rock that was formed with water, such as limestone, sandstone, slate, coal, to name a few. How long did it take to form them? How old are they? How old are the fossils? You ready for this? How long does it take to create a fossil? Now, I'm going to show you some fossils. This is the evidence. Then we're going to interpret it. We'll interpret them maybe one of 2 ways. We'll see. We'll see what we do here. So here's just like this is a rubber fish, but here's a representation of a fish. How does a fish become a fossil fish? Let me show you a fossil fish. How does this become this? Well, maybe you've seen a presentation on this, or maybe you remember from 8th grade, 9th, 10th, 11th, whatever, or college, on how they describe how this becomes this. Now, here's the general idea. The dead fish then floats or sinks, to the bottom, and then it's covered over with silt, maybe a little bit more silt. The silt dries out, and then the fossilization process takes place over the course of 1,000, 2,000, 100,000 years, million years, whatever. That's the idea. Well, that very well could be. But why don't we find any half fossilized things? Like, let's say it takes 5,000 years to fossilize this fish. Why is it after 2,500 years we don't see a half fossilized fish anywhere? It's not time, it's conditions that are necessary to make this into this. And I'm going to show you a fossil a little later on in the program that was created in, well, I'm not going to tell you just yet, but I think you're going to find it very interesting. Now, notice that the fossil is bent as if it was going through, they call it a death pose. It was going through a struggle, perhaps. I mean, in order for that to happen, this had to do this in order to become this. What could cause that? Could it be natural that it was done? Sure. But what if this was caught up in a worldwide flood where we're talking massive amounts of water movement, sediment movement, volcanoes going off, tsunamis here and there, not just occasional, and rapid burial. Sounds like that is the ingredients for fossilization. And geologists would agree with you, but they don't agree on what causes that burial. My contention or my understanding is that this fish right here, and in order to become this right here, has to be buried very, very quickly. Think about this for a second. How quickly does a fish begin to deteriorate? How many of you have actually found your poor goldfish dead in the tank? Sometimes when things die, they bloat up and they float to the top. Well, if they float to the top, then they deteriorate without it sinking to the bottom and getting buried unless something grabs a hold of it, like sediment, tons of sediment, and just goes squish, just like that. Now we sit there and see why leaves, when they fossilize, they're flat. They're not all curled up. They're not all broken up. They're not all deteriorated. They are flat. You get on eBay and look at fossilized leaves, or just on the internet, period. And here's what you're going to find. Check this out. Notice a couple of things here. Notice how flat and beautiful and unbroken the leaves are. Now, you could make this case that, all of this, the fish and the three leaves, they all just floated down into the mud and they were covered. Look how preserved the fish looks. Take a good look at it. Do you see its tiny little bones and its fins have all been preserved? This is evidence, friends. Evidence. Here's another one right here. You know what this is? It's a shrimp. Take a close look at it. That's not a drawing. That's an actual shrimp that's been compressed and then buried in limestone. And look at this right here, the antenna and the legs, the structure, the tail, the eyeball. You look at that, it doesn't take a genius. It doesn't take a rocket scientist nor a geologist or a paleontologist to ask the question, how quickly did this get buried? Was it just mud or silt that went over it? No way. This had to be buried profoundly and very quickly. I read an article just recently. This came out a few years ago. Some of my biggest critics will say, they roll their eyes and they say, of course we know that fossils are buried quickly and form quickly. Well, not everybody seems to be on the same page about forming quickly. They'll say that it can be quick, but they'll also be quick to say it can take thousands, hundreds of thousands of years. Now, you're probably asking yourself, why is this so important? Because if you're going to espouse this idea or entertain the idea that life on Earth is only 6,000 years old, and that this didn't happen millions of years ago, this happened during all this happened during the worldwide flood. And that during a worldwide flood, the conditions were perfect for fossilization. And that's the reason why you don't see it going on right now. So they roll their eyes and they say, we knew it all along. What are you talking about? All you got to do is read a book. Get a lot of criticism on this. And you may see some criticism in the Neftali, in the comments section when you publish this. Just get ready, okay? They discover it. They'll be trying to pull everything apart here. But the thing is that we don't hear about that. When was the last time you got on the History Channel or the National Geographic Channel or anything and they said, and fossils form very quickly? Matter of fact, we think they form. Some can form within months or years. No. You ask the average person on the street, how long does it take to form a fossil? They'll tell you what their perception is. So why is it, and I'm not a conspiratist here, but think about it for a second. Why is it that they give that a fair hearing in the understanding of fossilization. And by the way, my understanding is that this idea of very quick fossilization process has only been known or forwarded since the 1980s, since they started to embrace, almost reluctantly, catastrophism. So you will see the critics say, we knew this all along. Okay, that's fine. But how come you're not telling us this then? Are you afraid that people are going to interpret then this as something that happened during the worldwide flood? Because during the worldwide flood, it would have to happen that way if the flood actually did occur. Very, very quickly, very profoundly, preserving it. So I read this article just recently. I haven't done a video on it yet. And the gentleman in the article said that he believes that the fossilization process takes place within hours. He was even suggesting at one time when he would put forward this idea, and this is an evolutionist, by the way, paleontologist, evolutionist. He said, perhaps even the process of fossilization killed the animal. Now, in subsequent articles, he backed off a little bit, but he said weeks and months to form a fossil. Okay. Do we have any further evidence that a fossil can form quickly? We do, but I want to talk a little bit. I'm going to come back to it. I'm going to talk about how fast does rock form. So the limestone that this is in, does it take millions of years to form, or can it form quickly? Again, you're going to get the impression based on what you read that limestone accrues, they call it accretion. That means it starts to form a little bit at a time and over the course of a long period of time. Let me just say it that way, that we have it. Yet, when I was in Glen Rose, Texas, I saw dinosaur tracks in the limestone mud. But what's so remarkable about that? Some of these tracks, and I measured them, were 13 inches deep. Now, how do you get 13 inches of, and let me put it this way, limestone mud, aka cement-like matrix that is going to harden very quickly once it dries? How do you get 13 inches of it over the course of a huge expanse for a dinosaur, then dinosaurs, by the way, to put their feet in them and go anywhere between a couple of inches, depending on, of course, how wet it is or how wet it is through the matrix itself or how much of the matrix is placed down there, up to 12, 13 inches, and how heavy the animal is too. Where do you get all that limestone? Now, during a worldwide flood, you could create all of this limestone very quickly and very deep. And then the dinosaur put his foot in it, brought it back out. And as you saw here, look at the condition of this. It's beautiful. Is this 65 million years old? This print that we're seeing today? Or is it relatively not too long ago? Now it's like, wait a minute, John, are you saying that dinosaurs roamed the earth 4,500 years ago? Yes. Yes, it's exactly what we're saying. That they did, and they were caught up in a worldwide flood, and majority of them died there. So can rock form quickly? Can limestone form quickly? Well, we've seen something suggesting by that footprint that it can form quickly. This is limestone. This is limestone from the Pluxee River in Glen Rose, which you just saw that facsimile. That was actually a print taken from the Glen Rose area at the Dinosaur Valley State Park by evolutionary paleontologist. And we purchased it at the store. This is limestone. It's beautiful when it glistens, it's wet, and it glistens in the sun. It's absolutely gorgeous. This is where we find dinosaur tracks. But here's where it can get a little bit confusing, okay? They also found a giant cat print in the same strata. Let me show you a close-up of this. Is a reproduction of the original. This is a American lion, we think, about 5 to 6 feet at the shoulder. It's a giant track, giant animal, and it was found in the same strata. Well, what's so crazy about that? What's the problem with that? I hope I'm not throwing too much at you, but let me just suggest this. If dinosaurs roamed the earth no earlier than 66 million years ago, that giant track, that giant cat track, according to evolution, they came about 350,000 years ago. So what's a 350,000-year-old animal doing in the same limestone matrix that the dinosaurs are in? Unless both of them were caught up during the worldwide flood. Do you see where I'm getting? Let me show you some examples of fast-forming rock. Now, I may not be able to show you modern-day limestone forming quickly, okay? I may not be able to do that. But let me show you something else. This is travertine. It's beautiful. And there is a fountain in Thermopolis, Wyoming. And this it was okay. So what originally did, they had a teepee about 20 feet tall with a pipe coming up from the ground. And what it was supposed to do is blow off a little bit of steam and a little bit of mineralized water, and it was covered with bricks. Okay, so imagine a brick teepee. Well, this is what happened. This is only after about 10 years, and that's travertine right there, all up and down it. It accrues at like, I don't know, 1 to 2 inches a year. And travertine, if you were to give this to a geologist, say, how old is this? He would ask questions. Where did you find it? Were there any fossils in it? That's how they ask. They can't just tell you how old this is. This right here is 12 years old. And that is this right here. Now, this wasn't taken from this, but it's the same material as this. So it's not a question of how long it takes to form a rock. It's what are the conditions that can form a rock. And typically you have to have a slur, you have to have a binding agent in there, like in cement, just to put it simply. So let me show you another example. In Karlovy Vary in the Czech Republic, there is mineralized water all throughout the town. It was known for it since the 1600s. People would go there and take mineral baths. They would also drink the water thinking that there was healing properties. And what they do is they put little trinkets in the water because they have fountains all over the city. And within very short period of time, within days, weeks, it'll cover the object that you put in there. And then they sell them as souvenirs with what they call aragonite. Aragonite is kind of an iron-colored calcite, which is similar to the limestone that I showed you. This right here is an iron pipe. It's a cross-section of one, okay? So the iron pipe went this way, and they sliced it like a slice of cheese. Now, what went through this was the mineralized water in Karlovy Vary. How long do you think it took for this to form? It took around 80 years to put 2.5 inches of this material. Is it stone? You're yes. And there's the backside. This is the side that wasn't polished. Okay. Get you a nice close-up of it. One more look here. Doesn't it look like petrified wood, the rings of a tree or something? 80 years it took to put 2.5 inches on here. 80 years, not 800,000 years, 80 years. So again, the conditions have to be right. When the conditions are right, all you got to do is have a little bit of heat, a little bit of pressure, and a little bit of binding agent and minerals, and they come together and they just like a concrete sidewalk. That's how rocks are formed in part. Not all rocks like that are formed, but the sedimentary or the alluvial, as they call them, rocks do. And again, what it shows is that rock forms quickly. Of course, that doesn't tell us how old they are, but it sure shows that it can form quickly. During a worldwide flood, And by the way, the flood lasted 1 year, not 6 weeks or 40 days, 40 nights. It lasted an entire year, and then everything hardened up after the flood. So you had things that were still soft. You had things that were hardening over the course of time, fossils forming from that time that they were buried shortly after. So you need the right conditions, and the flood provided those conditions. This right here is another cross section of a pipe where mineralized water, heated water, about, I believe, 200 degrees, was put through it. 6 months, friends, 6 months, and you have the same material, that stalactites and stalagmites that you see in the caves, forming. Now, I believe that the pipe was in this position because the water up here looks like it's starting to form. You see that? It's starting to form a little column of material. Like we see in the caves. There you go. Again, these aren't perfect examples. We can't replicate the flood or the conditions of the flood with everything. Some things we can. Let me show you this. This is coal. All right. It has been shellacked. That's why it's shiny. And in this coal, we have, if you can see it, right there. Do you see that right there? There you go. That's a fern leaf in coal. So if anybody ever asks you, hey, what's coal made of? At least you can tell them one ingredient is a fern leaf. That's a fossilized or coalized fern leaf in coal. Coal is approximately 200 to 300 million years old if you go by the evolutionary and modern geology way of dating things, approximately 200 to 300 million years old. Now, I'm going to go out on a limb here with this one. Some people have refuted this, and I get it. I'm fine with that. It's totally cool. This is a replica, and you see that iron cup there? The story goes like this. There were two men at a power plant in Sulphur Springs, Arkansas. Excuse me, this was in Oklahoma. A municipal electric plant in Thomas, Oklahoma. There we go. Frank Kennard and his friend were there busting up a huge piece of coal. Now, again, coal is supposed to be 200 to 300 million years old. If this was created during the worldwide flood, well, check this out. When they opened up that piece of coal, that large piece of coal, an iron cup fell out. That is a second generation. It looks just like that. I've held the actual iron cup in my hands, and that's how big it is, and that's what it looks like. And so they took that cup and they held on to it for many years. And then, people thought that maybe he might have been lying. So in 1948, he wrote an affidavit. And let me read you what he said. While I was working in the municipal electric plant in Thomas, Oklahoma in 1912, I came upon a solid chunk of coal which was too large to use. I broke it with a sledgehammer. This pot fell from the center, leaving the impression or mold of the pot in the piece of coal. Jim Stull, an employee of the company, witnessed the breaking of the coal and saw the pot fell out. I retraced the source of the coal and found that it came from the Wilburn, Oklahoma mines. Frank J. Kennard, sworn to me in Sulphur Springs, Arkansas, this day, 27th of November, 1948. Now, he could be lying, but this man had nothing to gain. He didn't get any money, notoriety, nothing from this. But he felt that he needed to testify before a notary that what he saw, what he had, and how he got it was the case. What is a human artifact doing in 300 million year old coal? Unless the Bible, can I throw that in? It says that Tubal-Cain, 5,500 years ago, was a metallurgist. He was a blacksmith. He was as the Bible says, an artificer of brass or bronze and iron. This could have been a cup. Let's just say what Frank Kennard saw and did was exactly what happened. That means that this cup is an antediluvian, or people before the flood. It's before the flood technology and an artifact before the flood. Now, this is not the only thing that's been found in coal. There have been other artifacts as well, too. But this is one I thought was pretty remarkable. Now, the actual cup itself can be found at the Creation Evidence Museum in Glen Rose, Texas. We do have some videos up on our site. And those of you that want to check out what we do, just go to either YouTube or TikTok, Facebook, Instagram, and just look us up, Lost World Museum, and you can watch some videos. All right, so we're kind of narrowing down. I'm going to show you two more things, then I'm going to show you the surprise fossil. You're going to freak out. Don't touch that dial. Comparative anatomy. Evolutionists use it to try to understand what evolved into what. Well, I'm going to do a little bit of comparing, but a little different way. And I'll tell you what the argument is, both for and against. This right here is a nautilus. Pretty cool, huh? This right here is a fossil nautilus. Pretty cool, huh? Both of them. This is heavy, sorry. Both of them look basically the same. This is modern day. This is a supposedly, take your pick, 100, 200, 300 million years old. Why haven't they changed? Let me tell you what the evolutionists say. The evolutionists say they didn't change. This didn't change because it already found its homeostasis, or it found its perfection early on, and so it didn't need to change. You look at the fossil record, you're not going to find anything imperfect. You're going to find every species, every kind of animal or plant or whatever, perfectly formed and perfect. So, but this is how it's argued away. As a creationist, I say the reason why there's no change is because this was created and not much change has taken place over the course of 6,000 years. But if we were to believe that this is 200 million years that separates the two, you're going to have to believe that this found its evolutionary peak and maintained it because it didn't need to change any further for the last 300 million years. That's what you're going to have to believe. All right. Rock formation. I'm going to show you another one of the fast forming rock. There is a mineralized waterfall, but it's very slow, like drips down in the UK. Mother Shipton is the name of it. People have been going there since the 1500s, just like in the Karlovy Vary area. And they would hang things from this cliff. It's maybe 20 feet high. Well, I was able to purchase a teddy bear that was held underneath this. This teddy bear right here is fossilized to a degree. They call it permineralization. When you have synthetic material, it helps stop it from permineralizing because it's synthetic and it doesn't absorb the moisture. So this went through quite a bit of the permineralization process that even dinosaur bones go through. Here. It's heavy too. Took 6 months to form this underneath, not a waterfall, although I called it that, but it just a kind of like a drip. You can see it online. You can see how much water, just even from their still photos, you can see how much water is coming off of that. So, when the conditions are right, rock does not take a long time to form. We see that fossils don't take a long, matter of fact, you can't have fossils taking long time to form. They have to be buried quickly, profoundly, water, minerals, locked in so no microbes can get at them, no air can get at them, no vermin can get at them that are going to eat it up, nothing that allows it to deteriorate, and to lock it in and let it start its process very quickly. So even all those, again, fine little details are not allowed to deteriorate. Okay. Our last object that we're going to show you tonight is a fast-forming fossil. So they say that fossils form fast. Great. Can you prove it? Can you replicate the conditions of the flood in the laboratory? And I have a friend that does that. And you can go and check out Gordon's stuff. It's more than just stuff at paleogenesis.com. paleogenesis.com. It's either .com or .org. Forgive me. But check that out. Paleogenesis.org, I believe it is. And you will be amazed at what you'll see. When we look at the fossilized, we were looking at fossilized leaf just earlier in the very beginning of the program. Check this out. This right here is a fossilized leaf. This is stone that he created in the laboratory. And there you go. We put more than just one leaf in there. Let me give you a nice close-up of it. This is not painted on. It's not artwork. This is literally a living leaf that was placed in a matrix of mud, so to speak, and then heated and pressurized, mineralized water. The conditions that you would have during the worldwide flood are being replicated in the laboratory. This took 48 hours to produce. 48 hours to produce. And we'll be doing a little more videos on this as well, too. And I got a fossilized squid I haven't shown anyone yet. And that was done in 48 hours as well, too. So the question is Genesis provable scientifically? Look, the Bible never comes across as a scientific book. It's not for that. History book, yes. Science book, not really. But when science comes together with the scripture, allowing the scripture to be the one that helps interpret or guide science, then we come to a right conclusion. Now, some people may disagree with that, and that's okay. But think about it. If it's not, then what's the alternative? And I'll just say this about science. I love science, but understand that the science that produced your microwave oven or your cell phone has nothing to do with the science that we're talking about today. The science that we're talking about today is in part speculation with assumptions that may or may not be right, with a worldview that says from the very beginning of it that the earth is 4.5 billion years old and that everything must fit into that timeline from a naturalistic or without any help from God. That's naturalism on its own. Or that Genesis is literally true. My only call to action for you folks is to go and read Genesis yourself. Even if you're a little bit skeptical about it, just read it. Read the first 6 or 7 chapters. That brings you all the way up to the worldwide flood. And then in a quiet moment, ask yourself, just ask, is this true? See if an answer comes. It may come in your conscious mind. It may all of a sudden say, yeah, it's true. I think you'll be surprised. For those of you that want to know more about what we're doing, feel free to head over to our website, lostworldmuseum.com, or check us out on all the different platforms that we're out there for social media. How do we do, Neftali?
Wow, that was amazing. Thank you so much for coming out. We actually have some questions.
Oh, okay. I'd
This
be
is
happy
from
to.
yes. So this is from my brother Timothy. So he says, so why did they lie about carbon dating? That's great.
Got to understand that when we're trying to date things, we're, again, they're coming under the, and this is my own personal opinion, they're coming under the mistaken impression or idea that the earth is old. The people that invented carbon dating weren't the ones that came up with this idea. This idea had been percolating within science, if you might want to say, even in the 1700s. So they were trying to break away from the scriptures which was heavily influenced in our normal society, not like today, and also in our educational system and social system. And that idea that there was a worldwide flood and that fossils were a result of the flood was something that was understood by, most people, or at least the educated people, whatever. So when they invented these types of dating, they weren't purposely trying to lie, but what they were trying to do was to understand, what dates are from a long periods of time, understanding, or a platform. They're leaping off of that. Now, the gentleman that invented it, Dr. Libby, understand that, and again, from an evolutionary standpoint, carbon dating is only good for 50,000 years. And the reason is that they take the half-life of carbon-14, which is 5,700 years approximately. And when you keep going half, then the molecules are not even existent. You can't even see them. So 50 to 100,000 years is carbon dating. Now, the other types of dating, like potassium argon, and there's some others, they're the ones that are saying that they're 4 billion or 3.8 billion. They go back further than that. But dating something through our assumptions based on the science that we're using, good for some things and not so good for other things. And let me just give you a clue. I won't do this during this program, but they found carbon-14 in dinosaur bones that shouldn't be. I'm talking a lot of dinosaur bones that shouldn't be there. Carbon-14 shouldn't show up after 100,000 years. And if dinosaur bones are 66 million years, why is there carbon-14 showing up in dinosaur bones? They are. It means they're not that old.
All right, that was a great explanation. Do you guys have any more questions that you may want to ask John, or if you need him to, explain something a little bit more for you guys? Because we
Yeah,
have him here. We have him here, guys.
we're
You know,
here.
the importance of this is that, for a long time, we had Christianity, we had, Islam and different religions, but now we have a new religion, and that's called evolution. And now a lot of people are starting to gather themselves onto this. And the thing is that we need to learn. And so we have teachers like John who come over here and take the time out to actually teach us about now the formation of a fossil, and the fact that we see carbon uh, in dinosaur bones, the fact that you even found dinosaur tracks. And the thing is how they're aligned with what was that? You said it was a dinosaur track with another what was it? A
It was a
360
lion.
a lion, yes. So the fact that we see dinosaur tracks with a lion's tracks is like, hey, what's going on here? Were they hanging out together? Were they taking a nice trip out in
Can
the
I
woods?
can I can I plug a book that we just published? I mean, I'm not talking no more than about a couple of weeks ago. Is that
Oh my
okay?
goodness. Whatever you want to, you say you don't want to hold back, please. Go ahead and do what you need to do.
This is called Valley of the Giants. I have a love affair with giant humans, and the idea of that dinosaurs and humans coexisted at one time, which they did, I believe. This is a photographic proof from the Paluxy River from the 1970s. We took the photographs, and this was actually a book that is way, not just out of print, but way out of print. And what we did was we got permission to redo the whole book, including cover and typeset. And we took the photos and we enhanced them with AI, and we put them in this book. And we just published this, matter of fact, on TikTok just a few days ago. So it's on our website, lostworldmuseum.com. But Valley of the Giants talks about not just that dinosaurs and humans coexisted, but that the humans that coexisted with dinosaurs, and there's photographic proof in here, were giant humans. Some of these footprints are 18, 20, 21 inches long with strides of 6 to 7 feet walking. Do the math if you can figure that one out. You're talking 10 to 12 foot human. Goliath. plus.
All right, guys. So I need you all to check out lostworldmuseum.com. Please support and purchase the book. I know I will definitely be taking a look at that. Now we have another question. They say, how can something be 50 to 100,000 years old? That's my question.
Okay. So the dinosaur bones that were tested through a carbon dating, an independent carbon dating company, they found that the majority of the dinosaur bones were anywhere between 20,000 to 40,000, and I'm going to call them carbon dating years. Now, I'm not an expert on carbon dating, but I believe that the younger it is, like 500, 1,000, 2,000, 3,000 years, the more accurate those carbon dating years are to actual years. So when you say 50 to 100,000 years, you're just okay, so there's that part. But when I say 50 to 100,000 years, I'm not talking as a creationist. I'm talking theoretically as a evolutionary mindset that purports this to be. And it's true. If since there's carbon 14 in all of us, and when we die, it locks it in like a time capsule. And if I have 100% say carbon 14 in me right now, in 5,700 years, I'll have 50% of what I had originally. And then another 5,700 years later, I'll have only 25% of what I had in originally. So if you start working that all the way out, there comes a point where you can't even see the molecules anymore. They're half-lifed so much that they're non-existent. That's why, if in fact evolution was true, and we had this timeline of 4.51 billion years, then carbon dating is only good for 50 to 100,000 years. I hope that helps a little bit.
Yes, it does. Now I have a lengthy question here.
Okay,
Uh, I haven't really read the whole thing, so let's take a look at it together.
go for it.
All right. So it says, question: how do the Americas relate to the uh,
Tertiary.
tertiary? Okay, I'll let you read that because that was a word that I didn't. Go ahead and read that for us, John.
I don't know everything there is to know. And listen, I am a self-educated person in this realm, and I don't know everything. But that's cool, because what I'm here to do is what I do know, and I'm learning as I'm going too, is to simplify this and put it in the context and explain it, contrasting and comparing the two views. Let me just say this. After the worldwide flood, the earth was pretty devastated and everything was starting to solidify. There were huge lakes that were like the Grand Canyon, some feel was created after the worldwide flood was over with, that there was a huge lake just north of it. And that, when the water settles in these areas, that's why Lake Titicaca has a lake 13,000 feet or whatever it is up there in South America. How did that get up there? That's worldwide flood water. Maybe not the original water anymore, but that's how that got up there. And so when the water was coming down, 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 there were breaks in areas that were holding back water. And the one theory is that the ground was still soft. And so that Grand Canyon, that huge, massive Grand Canyon, was cut through quite more easily than it being solid rock and having it cut through it a little bit at a time with a stream of water, a river. Mount Ararat is in Turkey. That's where 8 people got off. From there's two things that could have happened for the disbursement. They could have hung out there close to the mountain for a few generations as the populace was starting to build up. Some of them may have taken off at some point on their own and decided to go and explore the earth, remapping it, understanding what's going on out there. And some of them maybe perhaps within a few generations made their way into the United States. Now there's two theories. They came down through Siberia, down through Alaska, or before the water went up and by 300 feet, The continental shelf exposed at one time a lot more ground, which means they were able to hop from one place to the next without having huge expanses of water in between. It's possible that they went, in around the islands and the continents of the Orient, and then, went over to South America. Those are just theories. Obviously, they came from somewhere and they spread across the entire United States because we find burial mounds in the Northeast of giant humans too. Many, many burial mounds that contain giant humans of anywhere between 7 to 11 feet tall. Now, where are all these bones? Well, some of them were destroyed. Some of them were taken out, and who knows? And the Smithsonian took a bunch of them back to Washington, and they never to be seen again. So then you have the other disbursement, the major disbursement, the Tower of Babel, where everybody was congregating. And then all the languages were confused. And then they went and hugely started dispersing throughout the world. So, that's all I can tell you for right now. As far as, did the all the mammals that died, what appears to be and fossilized in the United States. You've got camels, you've got mastodons, you've got mammoths, you've got the American lion. A lot of mammals seem to congregate there, but you got dinosaurs there too. So did some of them die in a second fossilization period shortly after the worldwide flood, when massive amounts of water was released from certain, bodies of water that were held up? It's possible, but I don't know for sure. This is worthy of investigation.
Hey, that was a great explanation. Very thorough. So we have, and I know you probably have to get going. So I have one more question
I'm good.
that I'm going to bring forth. So this is, they said, my question is, have we evolved as a species or devolved since creation? Good question.
We have so much de-evolved since creation. And I
Mm,
think that the reason why God made us so robust was not because entirely that we started from a standpoint of built to live forever to begin with. And then after that was removed from us, a natural progression of genetic, degradation, environmental degradation. Then the worldwide flood came and totally cursed the earth. I mean, as far as its resources, scattering perfect soil all over the place. Most of those minerals and salts went from on the land into the water, and there we've got salt water because of that. And matter of fact, they'll extract the minerals from the ocean and dry them up and sell them in bags to put in your garden and give your garden a healthier glow. We were taller than we were. That's the reason why you see the larger, tracks. Let me show you my favorite photo in here is photo, if you want to call it photographic proof. I will show you one of my, here's one. Now, those prints, they believe that are human footprints. And look at the stride. A broom, well, that's got to be about 16 inches, I'm thinking. I have not measured a broom before, but broom's got to be a good 4 or 5 feet. That stride is somebody who's 8 to 10 feet. So we were taller, probably better looking. And there was one gentleman that, utilizing 130 to 150 generations since Adam and Eve to us today, there's about a 1% genetic degradation that takes place in every generation. He worked it back intelligent quotient, the IQ, and it's theorized that the people before the flood had IQs of somewhere between 400 to 700. If you look at the savants, those who have perfect recall, can smell colors, can calculate things quicker than a computer. When you put all those people together, all their attributes, perfect memorization, perfect recall, calculation of numbers, that it gives us a glimpse of what our minds were before the degradation that took place over the last 6,000 years. And rightly so. Could you imagine if we had IQs of 110 and we were 6 foot and 5.5 feet tall, and we start with lifespans of only 80 years, and we started 6,000 years ago like that? The vitality that we had now back then to make it this far, we would have been extinct before we got anywhere close to here.
And that is a good point that you're bringing forward because we're supposed to be continuing evolving. We're supposed to be getting stronger, smarter, but it doesn't appear to be that way. So I can't wait to see their explanation as to why we're declining as much as we have been. But
Yep.
John, I don't know that you have anything else for us because I don't want to hold you any longer. I
No, we're
mean,
good.
I'm enjoying you, but I know you got to go.
Well, I appreciate you having me come on, and I and
Yeah.
I appreciate every single one of the people that have seen this live or see this in a recording. Understand that the important question that everyone, very fundamental, where do we come from, apes, aliens, or Adam? We kind of coined that as a cute way of just proposing that equation. Where did we come from? It's a good starting point for some, not everyone, but it's a good starting point for some. And if you do decide, maybe after you're watching this or giving it some thought later on, that the atom proposition is something to worth considering and exploring it, by all means do that.
Sounds amazing. Again, we like to thank you so much for coming on. I want you guys to please subscribe to the Lost World Museum and also go to the lostworldmuseum.com and to purchase and support John and his with his, purchasing his book and whatever supplies he has on his website and subscribe to his channel. And John, I want to have you back on again. I look forward to having you back on for the third time because the third time is the charm.
Well, we should have some more interesting things forwarded, some more, ideas and everything, make it even a little bit
Mhm.
more comprehensive and clear as far as what this is all about. So yes, happy to.
All right. Well, John, I'm gonna go ahead and say thank you so much for coming on, and you a good night.
Thank you. Same here.
Mhm. All right, guys. So we just had John on. I thank you all so much for participating and providing some good questions for him. Um, okay, so let's see if we have any more some more questions. All right. So it looks like everybody's okay. So I'm going to go ahead and thank you guys so much for coming on. We did a lot of, we shared a lot of information with you. If you have any questions, like I said, to go on and check out John's channel, he's going to be able to break down more things for you because he has, uh, his channel. He has all the information over there. But again, guys, I thank you so much. I had fun with you guys tonight. And as always, have a good night and Shalom Most High bless.